This is the 2021 Yamaha MT-03, and it does something that no other entry-level beginner bike can do, and I can't wait to tell you guys all about it. Let's do it. So for as long as I can remember, this is how they make entry-level bikes. They make them like this, and they make them like this, and they make them like this. They make them small for small, tiny little people, because I think you're gonna learn how to ride when you're really, really small. But what happens when you're big? What happens when you're a large man, a larger person, and you want to start riding a bike? The problem is you look stupid learning or riding as a big guy on a small bike. You look like big guy, fat man in a small coat. You know what he says? What does he say?
Big guy in a little coat.
Yeah, you look like big guy in a little coat. But just because you're big does not mean you're ready for 1,000 cc, 100 horsepower, 100, 200 horsepower. Well, if that was the case, until now. But this is completely different. It's so different that when I first saw one of these things, I thought this was an MT-07, which happens to be one of my most favorite loved motorcycles. You can check out a video of me riding one right here. But it's not, it's the 03. This is the baby of Yamaha's MT lineup. You've got the 03, you got the MT-07, you have the MT-09, and then you have the MT-10. And all these create the family, and it's what Yamaha calls their hyper naked lineup, which is different than regular naked. This is the most amount of naked a motorcycle can legally be. But you as a person, if you got busted outside, hyper naked, you would get arrested for hyper indecent naked exposure. Not on motorcycles, they're different. Now the MT-03 is powered by a nice little, very powerful 321cc water-cooled 2-cylinder engine, which makes 37 horsepower to the wheels. Which may not sound like very much, but if you compare that power to weight ratio to a car, it would have a better power to weight ratio than a Mazda Miata. And if you ever driven a Mazda Miata, or if you heard of anyone talk about driving a Mazda Miata, they're awesome. They're really, really fun vehicles. So you could consider this the Miata of motorcycles. But what makes this bike so unique is that I'm 6'2", and I feel comfortable sitting on this bike. I mean, it really is a full-size, normal street bike. And not only that, MSRP is like $4,700. So you get this bike for less than $5,000. I mean, if I was starting out, this would be the bike that I would have wanted to have had. Or if I'm recommending someone who's starting out, a grown man who wants to get on a sport bike or naked street fighter, this is absolutely the bike. Another cool thing about it is it uses the same engine as their entry-level race bike, the Yamaha R3. It's just tuned and geared for the street opposed to racing. Now, the other thing I really like about this bike is that it's not all teched out, it's simple. Other than ABS, it has no other driver's aids, and that's because it doesn't need any other driver's aids. You don't need wheelie control, you don't need different power modes, you don't need traction control. It's just learn how to ride the bike the way it is, and I really appreciate that. It also helps keep the cost down. And since it has the ergonomics of a naked bike with the dirt bike handlebars and the way the pegs are, you know it's going to handle extremely well. And it's cheap on insurance, and looks like a robot insect transformer, all for less than $5,000. Let's go take this thing for a spin. But first, let's address the hate. The only hate that I've seen on this bike was one thing, and people complain about first and second gear being geared too low. My problem with that is it is only 37 horsepower. So what do you expect? It's either gonna be geared for a little more power, or it's gonna be geared for taller speeds, but you can't have both. So to put things into extremes, if you had one gear that could do 200 miles an hour, it'd be incredibly slow during that whole time. If you had one gear that could do 20 miles an hour, it's gonna be real quick and snappy. They found some mid-range, so I would rather have the bike be a little quicker and snappier at the lower ends in the first couple gears, so you can do wheelies, then be shifting less. So, I mean, I don't know. It makes sense to me. Let's go take it for a spin. All right, guys, do the words of wisdom, Philippians 4:4. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Put that back in my pocket. Put on the only gloves that I love to wear, the M1. I tell you what, I was putting my helmet on, and I was like, man, when I put my helmet on, I feel like I'm home. I feel the same way about these gloves. I put my helmet and my gloves on, I'm just home. Guys, I'm pumped. Crack my leg. All right, I'm pumped to ride this motorcycle and to show you guys what this little guy can do. Check this out. This might surprise you. The little wheelie right there, not bad, not bad. So this is peppy. This is a peppy little bike. If you're thinking like 250 Rebel beginner bike and stuff like that, this is not what that is. You know, those bikes were pretty slow, pretty doggish, pretty sluggish. I'm being honest with you guys. If you didn't tell me what this was, I'd have thought it was maybe even a 500 parallel twin, or a 550 or a 600 parallel twin. Obviously not a 600 Super Sport. I'm not saying that. You know, it never flatlines in the power. It never runs out of steam or falls on its face. It feels good, guys. If that oil light's flashing, it's got oil in it. I think it's I think she's telling me it needs the first oil change. And we checked it for oil. I don't know, maybe it's gonna explode, I don't know. So shifting on this bike, very, very smooth. The clutch, it's a cable clutch. It feels incredibly light. You know, you still have that feeling, but I mean, you can easily one finger, look at this, one finger clutch it without getting fatigued. Check this out, I'm in 4th gear, I'm going 40 miles an hour on a small CC bike. Watch this. Roll into the gear. I don't got to downshift, or if I want to accelerate, I've got to drop 2 gears. I can just roll into it. I mean, this thing, I think the gearing is perfect. I never ever would have made a note or comment and been like, first and second gear, or gear too low, because I don't think they are. I think they feel perfect. And just like my analogy before about comparing this to a Miata, you're not going to get in high speed trouble. You know, you're not going to be doing 90 miles an hour or whatever. But on the corners, one of the most fun things you can do on a motorcycle, more fun than destroying the speed limit on the highway, which I would encourage you not to do. More fun than, you know, drag racing your buddy from straight light to straight light, which you definitely should not do. But hey, you know, one of the most fun things on a motorcycle, and this bike is perfect for that, is when you see that corner that says 15 miles an hour and you're like, I'm gonna do it at 45, and you just keep on pushing it and pushing it. I mean, this thing feels planted. It handles so well. It has all the power you're gonna need just to have fun with it, you know. And the thing is, that makes sense. You know, back in the days, guys were riding small displacement motorcycles and they weren't very powerful, but they were still fun because, you know, cars weren't very powerful back then compared to stuff we have now. And listen, I know there's a guy out there who's like, I had a 427, I had a 426 Hemi Cuda, and it ain't no Hellcat. You guys were not touching 700 horsepower back then, but we have a lot of more driver's aids now. It's a good bike. Let me just say, it's a good, fun bike. I do like the way it feels. It's been a couple months since I've been on an FC7, or since I've been on a FC8 or FC9 or FC10 or FC11 or FC12 or FC13 or any of the FCs or the MTs or any of those. I don't think they feel any different. I think it's a really, really fun size. You know, reading the manual and reading like the information about these things, how they ergonomically build the tanks to fit the rider and stuff. I like that. Now, I don't know if this if someone adjusted this brake pedal. It's very rare that I get on a bike and the brake pedal is adjusted in a way that I can cover the brake pedal. Normally I can't. Normally I hang my toe off and I gotta lift up to grab the rear brake pedal, unless I adjust it to where it feels good. But this one, I can sit on there and cover it. Not a huge deal. I just thought it was kind of interesting to mention. Guys, let's rip this 0 to 60 right now. Now listen, I know what you guys are saying. You guys are showing us a small bike. A small bike's not gonna go very fast. I think the 0 to 60 might impress you. Maybe not. All right. There. That's not bad. That's not a bad 0 to 60 for a 321 cc motorcycle. Can you believe that? And now we're riding this thing on the highway. It's a lighter bike, but it's not crazy light. Now that's a good thing and a bad thing. Some people are like, oh, I want a heavier bike for the highway. I've never really seen that being an actual, that makes you feel more stable. That's not really what makes a bike stable, in my opinion. It weighs 375 pounds. 50 pounds lighter than like a 600 Super Sport. It is a much smaller engine though. The reason, the bike's not that much smaller, but generally the reason like the FCs and these other naked bikes are not significantly lighter because they have less stuff, is because a lot of the parts that they're taking off are fairings, and that's light anyway. But then also some things that are on a Super Sport bike that might be aluminum, they're just going to use steel or something because they're trying to keep the cost down. And I think I'm okay with them keeping the cost down because you need some good, fun, entry-level bikes. And the fact that this is probably, maybe with taxes, you might be just over 5,000 bucks, but MSRP is 4,700 bucks. It's really, really hard to beat that. And I think this is a pretty impressive bike. Guys, that wraps it up. Thanks for hanging out. We will see you next time. Check out the link below for all the cool, the greatest motorcycle gloves and some of the other products that we mentioned on the videos. Check out this next video right here. Remember, it's not what you're riding, but where you're going. We'll see you guys later.